I'm Officer Jason Miller, and I'm telling you, it was supposed to be the most boring Tuesday morning of my life. Just another standard patrol at Capital City Airport. But then, in the span of maybe 5 seconds, everything I thought I knew about instinct, about danger, and about my job completely exploded. You wouldn't believe it, not a soul moved when my entire canine unit, all 14 of them, including my lead shepherd, a beast named Goliath, suddenly snapped out of formation and, in perfect, terrifying unison, formed a tight circle around a tiny blonde girl standing alone near Gate 23. She looked like she couldn't be more than 4, clutching this raggedy, old purple unicorn stuffed animal, and the whole terminal just went silent. Literally, you could hear the whoosh of the air conditioning. Then the barking started, sharp and relentless, aimed right at her. The little girl, Sadie, her name was, I'd learn later, took a frightened step back, her eyes wide, and she looked around desperately. I could hear her small voice tremble. Please make them stop. I haven't done anything wrong. I yelled commands. My handlers yelled commands. The dogs didn't even flinch. They just kept their posture low, their bodies rigid, focused entirely on the child, or maybe on something she was holding. My heart was pounding because these dogs, they don't do this. They're the most disciplined detection animals on the continent, specialized in everything from advanced metallurgy detection to emotional threat profiling. But here they were, defying every single command I gave. I knew, the moment Goliath let out that low, guttural warning growl, that they weren't attacking her. They were reacting to her, or more accurately for her, like she was standing in the middle of a tripwire none of us could see. I knelt down slowly, my hand hovering over my holster, trying to keep my voice calm, which was a joke because inside I was screaming. Hey there, sweetheart. I tried. Are you lost? Where's your mommy or daddy? She just clutched that awful purple unicorn tighter, her tiny knuckles white, and just stared at me with these huge, dazed blue eyes. I mean, the calm on her face was what got me. It was too calm, too still for a lost 4-year-old. Goliath pressed closer to her, his nose twitching wildly near the unicorn, and he let out a sharp, decisive bark. That was it. That bark was our signal for an immediate, credible threat. Within seconds, security was swarming the area, alarms were blaring, and passengers were scattering like bowling pins, terrified we were dealing with a package bomb. But it wasn't a package bomb. Not exactly. It was when I managed to convince her to hand me the unicorn, promising I'd give it right back, that things went from critical to terrifying. The moment I held it, it felt wrong. It was heavy and cold, not the soft plush toy it looked like. I signaled to my secondary handler, a young officer named Maria, who brought over the portable X-ray scanner. The second she ran it over the toy's torso, the screen lit up like a Christmas tree and a high-pitched, insistent beep pierced the air. Maria's face, usually so composed, went white. Sir, she whispered, her voice barely audible over the blaring alarms. Internal metal signature, complex wiring. It's not a toy modification, it's a circuit. Goliath, hearing the scanner spike, stepped back, his hackles bristling, and all 14 dogs tightened their ring, barking again, but this time their heads were facing outward, shielding Sadie from the growing crowd, shielding her from us. They were protecting her from the device. Do you know what's inside, honey? I asked, my voice cracking a little. Sadie shook her head, tears finally starting to well up. It's just a unicorn. But the man said Daddy wanted it fixed. That phrase, the man said Daddy wanted it fixed, hit me like a physical blow. This wasn't random. This wasn't accidental. This was premeditated, and they were using this little girl as an unwitting mule, the perfect invisible cover. Just as the bomb squad team arrived, screaming split the air. Sadie, it was a woman, sprinting past the security barricades, completely frantic. Eliza Vance, Sadie's mother, her face streaked with tears, fighting off the officers trying to restrain her. That's my daughter. Someone took her from the family lounge 10 minutes ago. I waved the officers down, letting Eliza fall to her knees next to her daughter. Goliath, ever the judge of character, sniffed the air near Eliza, gave a single, soft, non-threatening whine, and backed off. Eliza was clean. She was the victim. Ma'am, we found something in the toy, I said, pointing to the scanner. Eliza's eyes locked onto the metallic reading. and she started shaking, but then she said something that completely changed the scope of the whole operation. "That's Dan's unicorn. Her father gave it to her. Before he disappeared." She stopped, catching her breath. Dan was a systems analyst for the Kronos Defense Group. He was working on a classified comms chip, the Zeus Key, and he told me people were watching him. "I think they finally found us." My blood ran cold, instantly connecting the dots. This wasn't a tracker. This was a live surveillance node, a military-grade beacon using Sadie as the perfect decoy to transmit encrypted data, probably pinging off government infrastructure inside the airport itself. And just as the realization hit me, Goliath's ears shot up, his attention snapping away from the mother and child, and his powerful gaze locked onto the main terminal window, looking out over the runway. I followed Goliath's line of sight, and there it was, a sleek, unmarked black SUV, idling just beyond the perimeter fence. Too clean, too new, too still. "They're still out there," I muttered, grabbing my radio. "Control, this is Miller. Unmarked vehicle at the south perimeter. I repeat, possible connection to the earlier threat. Deploy tactical units now." Static crackled, and before command could even acknowledge, the SUV's headlights flashed, its engine roared, and it tore across the service road, speeding towards the main exit. "Go!" I screamed into the radio. Goliath went absolutely ballistic, straining against my leash, barking a relentless, desperate roar that was echoed perfectly by the other 13 shepherds, creating a living, breathing wall of sound. They were tracking the smell, the residual scent of the men who had touched the unicorn, who had targeted the child. Through the rain-streaked glass, I saw a blur of motion in the SUV's passenger seat. A man with a grim, expressionless face, his eyes fixed on us, his mouth a thin line of calculated indifference. It was an image burned into my memory, a villain in a cheap spy movie, except this was real, this was my airport, and they had messed with an innocent kid. "Sir, you need to see this." Maria's voice cut through the chaos from behind me. The EOD team had carefully cracked open the unicorn and had the chip displayed on a tablet. It wasn't just location, Officer Miller. It was relaying data packets every 2 minutes, coordinates matching secure comms relays belonging to Kronos. They were using her toy to download intelligence directly from her father's network. The truth was sickening. They were piggybacking off Dan Vance's own encrypted systems, using his daughter as the key. Just then, Goliath's frantic energy shifted again, not towards the speeding SUV, but sharply to the far end of the terminal, near the unattended baggage claim. A low, deep, unmistakable growl started in his chest. My eyes scanned the area. Nothing, just a forgotten duffel bag tucked behind a ticket machine. "EOD, check that duffel bag now," I ordered, my voice hoarse. The scanner hit the bag, and the readings spiked instantly. "Miller, this one is hot. Explosive residue confirmed." The air left my lungs. The tracker was the diversion. The Zeus Key was the prize, and the bomb was the message. Evacuation alarms blared for the second time. But even as officers scrambled, I watched the pursuit on the terminal screens. The black SUV spun out after hitting the spike strips, and tactical units swarmed the vehicle. 2 men were dragged out, one shouting, the other silent and defiant. Justice raw and fast. The bomb was neutralized moments later, after the adrenaline crash. And trust me, it's a brutal one. I found Eliza and Sadie sitting quietly in the medical bay. Sadie was exhausted, but safe, clutching her mother's uniform sleeve. Goliath walked over slowly, his huge body moving with gentle precision, and nudged his nose into her tiny palm. Sadie giggled, a pure, innocent sound that was the real music of the day. Eliza looked up at me, her eyes glistening. "Officer Miller," she whispered, "I never got to thank you properly. The doctor said if Goliath hadn't reacted so fast, if you hadn't found us then, we wouldn't have survived that day. He didn't just save us, he gave us a second chance." She handed me a tiny, folded piece of paper. It was from Sadie, written in a shaky child scrawl. "Tell the dog he's my angel." I looked down at Goliath, who was resting his head on Sadie's bed, his big brown eyes calm and proud. We save people every day, we bust major cases, but this felt different. This wasn't about the Zeus key or Kronos defense. This was about instinct fighting pure, cold malice. It was a dog's unwavering commitment restoring a mother's faith. So here's the thing that still keeps me up at night, the debate in my precinct. The men who used that child, the men we caught, they were hired by a rival defense contractor, furious that Dan Vance had exposed their deep-seated corruption within the system. Not a foreign government, but just greedy people try to maintain power and land contracts. It was small-time human greed with global consequences. So I have to ask you, was the real enemy the terrorist we were trained to look for? Or is it the cold, calculated corruption within our own community that uses our children as collateral?